Lotus Ventures Inc. is a BC-based medical marijuana company poised to launch into the rapidly evolving cannabis sector. Lotus is in the final review stage of the Health Canada approvals to become a licensed producer, having arranged facility financing of up to $12 million, plus building permits for its prototype indoor production facility. Shares trade under the symbol J on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Visit our website at lotusventures.ca.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Jim.
Will the implementation of the newer, tougher mortgage rules likely make the banks bring in 30, 35, or 40-year amortization?
Yeah, I've heard those comments a few times, Jim, around some mainstream media reports. A few housing pundits and analysts and economists have come out with that comment. The truth is, you can already get a 30, 35-year mortgage on uninsured mortgage debt, which this new OSFI rule, bringing the mortgage qualification rate into all mortgages across Canada, already applies. So the comments that you've heard about, will this extend amortization periods for people to get around so that they can still be foolish enough to overpay for a property because their real estate agent, their mortgage broker, the real estate board, their housing consultant, everybody who's their parents, everybody who's talking to them, as a workaround so they can still pay too much money for the house that they want to buy? The simple answer is no. And it's ludicrous for anybody who would suggest that. Anybody who wants a 30 to 35 year amortization can already do it, and already are. What this rule means is that regardless, they're still going to have to qualify at the higher, 2% higher interest rate than what they're currently being quoted, or the posted rate. So it's not a workaround for those people. It's not a solution. Now, this OSFI rule has been mischaracterized across the entire country in the same way that housing prices, housing markets, home ownership wealth has been mischaracterized. If you go back to our old shows, Jim, go back to our old shows, and you look up what we discussed about home ownership debt service, and I think I may have even said in the show last year at this time that the government should be changing the GDS ratio, gross debt service ratio. What the government did was they changed the gross debt service ratio. What the government found out was, I'm hoping that our reports were part of their process to come up with the solution that they've come up with, is that as interest rates fall, people can afford to buy more and more home, a higher quality home, because their mortgage payment is going to be the same as it would be if interest rates were higher and they had to buy a cheaper house. When you buy a more expensive house, that home has a higher home ownership cost in terms of renovations, repair, and maintenance. It also has a certain percentage of property taxes that are higher. The GDS ratios that were in existence should have changed way back in about 2005. So as soon as your interest rates get to around 8% interest, there's a disconnect between GDS and what people can actually afford to spend on a house while still taking care of it. In other words, if you own a $1 million house, you should be expecting to spend somewhere around $25,000 a year just to on upkeep and maintenance and renovation. If you don't spend that money, then your house will not maintain its place in the housing stock. Its quality will begin to drop. Quality in properties begin to drop also in a housing correction. That's one of the things that people don't understand. As the housing correction rolls out, people can't afford to borrow money to renovate their homes, so the quality of their home begins to, of all homes, begins to fall down. This Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, it's always such a big name. All the rule that they brought out, they simply lowered the GDS ratio. That's all that they've done. What they couldn't say, though, was they couldn't go out to the public, to the 11 million families who purchased homes since 1990, and tell them, oh, by the way, we shouldn't have been lending you as much money as we have because your gross debt service really is too high when you're buying as much home as you are. We should have lowered the gross debt service ratio over years as interest rates fell. The problem is we didn't know that that's what was going on. That's right. They did not know this is how the cost of ownership works. And then they woke up to it. So instead of admitting that the GDS should have slowly gone down over the last 12 years, they jumped in and said, oh, we're going to create a new stress test. And we're going to disguise it as raising the interest rate. Well, what they do is they effectively raise the interest rate, which means that the current interest rate, your gross debt service level drops. Instead of being a maximum of 39%, it drops down to around 34%. In the way that we calculate things, I've always got to be careful on your show that what I say and what I'm thinking are often two different things. We look at everything the way that you should own a home, not the way that you do. So what this rule change all was, this rule change and the one that took place earlier this year from the fall of 2016 change on high ratio first-time buyers. All the government has done is they've lowered the gross debt service ratio. They've reduced the maximum amount of money they're willing to allow you to spend each month on your mortgage. That's what they've changed. It's got nothing to do with this 2% rise. They've just lowered the gross debt service ratio. And they've lowered it without telling you they've lowered it. Get a calculator out, listeners. Calculate it yourself. You'll see that the amount of income you can now spend on a mortgage has dropped. It's no longer that you can't max that 39% anymore unless you have a strategy that allows you to do so.
Ross, you were also wanting to comment on what the Toronto Real Estate Board is saying about condo sales right now.
Oh my gosh, Jim. Condo sales, thanks. So today, the Real Estate Board of Toronto Real Estate Board, TREP, just like the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver has done. In the third quarter, they're claiming that condo prices have risen 22% year over year. Now, they're saying this is different than the detached market. Sound familiar, Jim? I think you heard the same thing about Vancouver, didn't you? The difference is that when TREB does their statistics, people can simply grab the condo reports and compare them against one another. So the Real Estate Board says that condo prices have gone up 22%. What I would say is they've dropped $20,000 on average since the second quarter of 2017. That's right, folks. Condominium prices in the GTA on the condominiums sold by the members of the Toronto Real Estate Board have fallen since June 30th of 2017, the same way that single detached homes have fallen. Now, have they fallen the same amount? Of course not, because that's not how the sales chain impacts selling prices. The sales chain impacts each part of each category of home differently depending on how that sales chain is functioning when the market is correcting. So, the truth is, Toronto Real Estate Board, if they were representing home buyers, if they were representing the consumer, which clearly they're not, because clearly who they're representing are sellers to try to get the sellers a higher price, and commission earners. They're realtor members. These real estate boards, Jim, do not care about home buyers or about telling the truth to those home or consumers. Okay, well, I guess it's the same thing. Home buyers are consumers, but consumers to me is someone who owns a home and who's going to be impacted by how the market moves forward in their net wealth. The real estate boards never, ever tell home buyers the truth. They always present the data as statistics, and those statistics are only designed to support sellers getting higher prices and real estate agents getting more commissions. It is not predicated on giving a truthful representation of the market to home buyers or how the market is trending for existing homeowners. They're only interested in those who are looking to sell. They're only looking out for their realtors' commissions. The truth of the matter is, the data shows, data, not stats, that home prices on condominium home prices in the Greater Toronto area have fallen from June the 30th till September the 30th in terms of prices. Prices have dropped. Sales have dropped and prices have dropped. This is a totally different way of measuring than what the real estate board is presenting. In the same way that what's happened out in Vancouver. Instead of the real estate board in Vancouver saying, as I've said on other shows, trade-up buyers are no longer buying townhouses at the same rate. They're now buying condominiums, larger condominiums. The fact that they're a larger share of the condo sales is making the average selling price go up. Creates the illusion of housing prices going up, which allows real estate agents to charge higher prices than they should be charging under the guise of the statistics only representing the sellers and the commission earners. That's what the Toronto Real Estate Board did today. They outright lied to the entire public. This is not unusual. It's gone up thousands of times now since 2003. Every single month, there are dozens of real estate reports across Canada that lie to the public, present the information in a way that creates house price illusion, and that is exactly what happened today in Toronto.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after the break.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the U.S. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the U.S. and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, the city of Vancouver has announced 389 new affordable housing units will be built in Vancouver after the city set aside $25 million in land to make it happen. Can municipal politicians help their communities by taking actions like that?
Yeah, that was announced in the news today, Jim. But it was framed in the wrong way, and it wasn't presented to the public truthfully. So I'll answer the second part of your comment first. What actually happened, was announced today, was this. Existing homeowners in the city of Vancouver and other property tax payers, property taxes are now going to be $25 million higher because those homeowners are going to subsidize 389 rental units. 389 households, families, will move into these housing units, and the existing homeowners in Vancouver and other property taxpayers will be the ones who supplement or subsidize their rent. That is not how the message is presented to the public. And this is why the second part of your question comes in. Can municipal politicians help communities by acting on the housing market? Politicians need to first get educated on housing. And what I mean by that is this. There is subsidized housing, which means the taxpayer, all taxpayers, contribute some of their tax dollars to allow other families in the community to have a discount on their rent. That is what's called a housing subsidy. Now, I'll be honest with you, Jim. I'm fully in support of all the different types of housing that I'm going to talk about here. So this is not a critique on helping families with those 389 units. My problem is that it's not presented to the public in a fair and truthful way. I believe all homeowners in Vancouver should be proud of the fact that a certain portion of their tax dollars is going to help those less fortunate in their community. I think there's great pride in that. I think to take away the opportunity to be proud of what you're doing with part of your tax dollars, property tax dollars in this case, is an insult to the population, especially when they frame it as if this is a gift from Vancouver. In other words, it's a gift from the politician or the staff. No, this is property taxpayers giving a gift, a subsidy, to those less fortunate so they can afford to have a home. That's what's called subsidized housing. Then we have what's called affordable home ownership. Affordable home ownership is building properties that are below the median income level. You are building properties that people can afford to buy, if they're earning median income or less. That is what's called an affordable home. Generally, affordable housing is attracted to first-time home buyers. That's generally who you should be building for. Now, it could be any age that you're a first-time home buyer. Maybe you've rented for 40 years, and now you're ready to buy. Okay, you're still a first-time home buyer. You have no equity built up in your existing home that allows you to spend as much money as a current or a homeowner would have, who is building equity every day. That's what's called affordable housing. So affordable housing is housing that is built so that first-time home buyers who are earning median income or less can afford to buy the house. Now, your municipal government, again, they can help with that, and that does not have to come at a cost to the taxpayer. That does not have to come as a tax to the property taxpayer. It doesn't have to be a burden on the property taxpayer. It can be that can happen very easily through a zoning bylaws and incentives given to developers to add a few floors on your building under the condition that the selling price will be at this below this threshold price, and it will not exceed it at any time. That includes flips and everything else, stages, phases of the condominium. No, the units are affordable. And then you have the home ownership market. And the home ownership market covers all homes that you can purchase. People who live in their existing home. People who want to work their way up the property ladder to build net wealth in their home to fuel their retirement. That is another market. Those three markets are the words and the terminologies are thrown against each other, and they're intermingled every single day by every politician across Canada, every economist across Canada. And they mean totally different things. One, subsidized, means the taxpayer is going to subsidize the family that lives in that specific housing unit. Affordable means that the builders and developers are going to get a benefit by building more units on a certain square footage of land that allows the builder to earn the same profit, but for home buyers to be able to buy them, first-time home buyers, affordable housing, at prices that are more affordable. So the builder makes the same profit, except the new homeowners are able to purchase those properties at a lower price. And then the home ownership market, which is a normally functioning market that is a wealth-building market that every single community in the world, democracy anyways, is built upon. The politicians screw it up when they make comments like was made out of Vancouver today. The city of Vancouver gives $26 million so that 389 affordable housing units are built. That is simply a falsehood. They didn't say the taxpayers, the property taxpayers in Vancouver, are going to fund 389, subsidize 389 housing units in the city for people who can't afford to enter the home ownership market, or who can't even afford the rental market. Because you've got to remember, the rental market technically is the home ownership market as well. What the Vancouver, the mayor didn't say was, the province of British Columbia and all the rest of the citizens of British Columbia are not contributing the same way the property taxpayers in Vancouver are contributing. You see, what your listeners need to understand is this. Major cities in a province attract low-income families looking for work. When you attract those families, hopefully you'll have jobs for them. That is a provincial matter. The province should be helping the city out to allow more subsidized housing units to be built, because the entire province sends many of their low-income earners to the city of Vancouver to find jobs. And if they didn't send them, they would be in Victoria, Kelowna, and other places where those property taxpayers would have to pick up the tab to help out their community and give subsidized rental units. Why are the Vancouver property taxpayers, homeowners, asked to pay for higher property taxes than all of the rest of the province?
Ross, constitutionally, the city isn't responsible for housing. The province and the federal governments are, but the federal government hasn't built any social housing since the early 90s when Jean Chrétien got out of the social housing business.
Exactly right. And my comment is, first of all, I would never build social housing myself, because I know that history has proven that is not going to work. But I would subsidize housing in cities of high rental rates or a high cost of rent, like Vancouver, like Toronto. If I was a federal government, I would provide a subsidy to those families based on income. And then I would expect all taxpayers in the country to pay their fair share to help those families out. I wouldn't go to the homeowners in Vancouver or Toronto and tax them. Because you see, Jim, what the offshoot of the truth of this really is, the infrastructures in our major cities in Canada are so underfunded because politicians are so weak-kneed. Politicians have been listen to real estate agents all the time. They listen to real estate trade associations all the time. They listen to banks all the time. They listen to developers all the time. There is no reason that your property taxes in Vancouver really are not double what they are today. If your property taxes in Vancouver or Toronto were double what they are today, housing prices would be a little tiny bit lower to offset the carrying charges those property taxes have. In every single municipality across Canada, that is exactly what happens. So by the politicians wanting to get reelected, we're not going to give a property tax increase this year, or we're going to hold our property tax increase at inflation so that they'll get reelected, what they're effectively doing is, okay, but your house price is going to go up, making up the difference what those property taxes would have been anyways, and at the same time, we're going to let our infrastructure fall apart even more. This $25 million land donation from the city of Vancouver to these 389 families to get subsidized housing, that's $25 million of infrastructure that is not going to be rebuilt. That is $25 million that you could have put into a bond, that you could have used to build equity for the city, which could have funded other infrastructure projects for the next 25, 30 years. That's what the truth of what this decision is. And to frame it as if it's the city of Vancouver being kind and giving away this land only serves one purpose. I think you've got an election coming, do you not, in the city of Vancouver?
Well, there's always elections coming.
Right. And this is the mayor of the city of Vancouver playing politics with people's property taxes and lying to them in the process by framing it with a narrative that is false. And I think your listeners need to start waking up to this reality. The stakeholders involved in these processes, when it comes to homes, home ownership, and housing, they are totally messing with this country. And the sad thing is, Jim, there's no need for it. If you simply tell people the truth, you simply lay out things for them, over a very short period of time, they rationally see things for what they are, and they make a rational decision on their own. No more than you need to tell people in Toronto that housing prices are up in the third quarter for condominiums in the GTA when they're down $30,000 or $25,000. No more than you need to say the city of Vancouver is giving away $25 million worth of land, instead of saying our property tax owners, the homeowners in Vancouver, are going to subsidize 389 new household rental units for families that are below the median income level in Vancouver who can't afford or find a place. There's no problem telling people the truth. The truth always wins.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork will commence later this year. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Ross Kay. Ross, Vancouver Mayor Robertson has suggested perhaps the city of Vancouver should limit first-time condo offers to only people from the Lower Mainland, instead of allowing foreign buyers or even other Canadians get first shot at them, because we have seen condos in Vancouver where they've only been offered overseas.
Yeah, I've read those reports, and I believe it's 100% true. And now, I don't think necessarily it was just offered overseas. I think if people did some investigative reporting, you'd find that wasn't just overseas. They may have tried to market them overseas. There's many reasons why they need to do that, Jim. Under the current environment, okay, in other words, when I say need, it means the way that a housing market is structured, the way that a developer attacks earning profits by building a building. They're given a set of ground rules that they're operating on. If you're attacking something, you're going to attack those ground rules so that you can win. And with a developer, that means making as much money as possible. It's those who are protecting the citizens or the greater community in large who establishes the rules that those developers will be attacking. In other words, the municipality needs to play defense. When you're being attacked, you need to have a strong defense. Your strong defense is knowledge. Knowledge of loopholes, knowledge of business practices of developers and builders, flippers, foreign buyers, foreign owners, realtors, lawyers, bankers. You need to know how all of those individuals are going to help the developer attack your rules and regulations. Now, the one thing the BC Liberals did do is they gave the City of Vancouver the ability to institute a vacant home tax. Has that happened?
I think in theory starting January 1st.
So no. The answer is no, correct?
Yeah.
It has not happened. In other words, the tax it's not being applied right now, is it?
No, I don't think it rolls out until January 1st.
Right. So why wasn't it instituted the next week?
I don't know. Vancouver City Council does things like declare the moon an atomic weapons-free zone. That's where their heads are.
Right. So, it's the poor property taxpayers, the millennials, the younger demographic of the beautiful city of Vancouver, the province of British Columbia, which has a younger demographic, who are being hurt by these people, yet it's being framed as if they're your buddies. They're not your buddies when it comes to home ownership and building net wealth through home ownership. These people are taking you to the cleaners under the guise that they're something that they're not. The vacant buyer tax, the vacant homeowner tax in Vancouver should be 12% a year. That's what it should be. Because that motivates foreign owners to sell their properties or to put rental tenants in them. They needed to have a 1-800 hotline at city office where any existing homeowner could pick it up. Hey, my neighbor's house is empty. Can you send a bylaw officer by to check and see if it's vacant or not? There's so many ways that they could have done this so easily, yet they ignored it. Why?
And Ross, we also have a public safety problem here. There are so many vacant homes in Vancouver. Squatters are moving in and the places are catching fire. We're going to have a mass. I mean, I went on a ward investigating this. It's a huge problem in the city. The city puts out orders telling them you either sell it or demolish it or we'll do that for you, but the city never does. And they're still allowing these vacant buildings to remain standing for years.
Exactly. And actually, so you're ahead of the game, Jim, with the idea of squatters or a house burning down. What your listeners need to understand is this. If you live in a home and your neighbor's house is vacant, it's a vacant home. There's no one living there. If that house burns down, odds are there will be no insurance coverage on that property. A standard homeowner's insurance policy requires someone to be living there. Now, I do not know of an insurance company who will insure vacant homes. If there is no if there is no insurance, house insurance on the property, that renders the mortgage documents invalid. What that means is that your house catches fire because of the neighbor, you will have no one to be able to sue to recover the damages your house has suffered or your family has suffered. There is a logical homeownership real estate reason why there needs to be a 1-800 next door neighbor vacant phone number available at City Hall. It's so that existing homeowners can protect themselves from this type of activity. A vacant home is a billboard for fraud. If there is a vacant residential property anywhere in the city of Vancouver, other than a home is waiting to be torn down to have a new home built on the property, there is some, I will almost assure you, there is some fraudulent reason that is supporting that vacancy. If the city wants to, municipalities, politicians want to help the affordability issue, it's to liberate your housing stock. Now, I like the word liberate housing stock because it has multiple reasons. But a liberated housing stock means that there is adequate supply to meet the varying degrees of demand that happen on a marketplace over a given 10 to 15 year period. Okay? So when you get rid of these vacant houses, you start to liberate your housing stock. When you start to add more stories to development, you start to liberate your housing stock.
Ross, I could see a bylaw where I simply would call it either move it, as in sell it, or lose it. You've got 6 months or a year or something to either do that. But right now the city just sits on it. And Ross, I think we're getting pretty close to running out of time here. There was a CBC story over the weekend saying that the housing market there in Toronto has recovered from all the changes the Ontario government brought in the spring. Is that true?
I've got some swampland in Florida that I can sell you. That would be the quickest answer to give for that one, Jim. What I'll tell you is all the pundits out there who are claiming that the foreign buyers tax coming in, all the 16 housing points that the Ontario Liberals bought in were the cause for the housing market to have that little slowdown. It is just BS. The reason for the slowdown, folks, is because the original OSFI mortgage qualification rules that came into place last fall became effective about March. And if you look at which houses sold from March forward, this is a black and white issue. Now, you've got to be able to know how to read housing data. And that's where the problem that you have. All of these people do not know how to read housing data. It's as simple as that.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
My guest has been home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. You're listening to HoweStreet.com radio. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. You can also find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Questions for the show or for Ross can be sent to info@HoweStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HoweStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HoweStreet.com radio is a production of HoweStreet Media Incorporated.